Hey guys, Ben back here for Next Level Radio, bringing you yet another guest spotlight, and this one is definitely one of my personal favorites. This time around, Adam and I got to speak with Kevin Murphy of RiffTrax fame, and if you've ever seen the TV show Mystery Science Theater 3000, you know who Kevin Murphy is. He is the voice, the genius behind Tom Servo. Kevin was a lot of fun to talk to. He gave us some great insight into the inner workings of RiffTrax and reminisced with us a little bit about Mystery Science Theater 3000. He also discussed with us a few of the RiffTrax upcoming live events that are coming up, as well as going into how Kickstarter has been extremely helpful, being able to help them do some of these live events that they have planned. Make sure you check out www.rifftrax.com. Show these guys the support that they deserve, and keep an eye out for these upcoming live RiffTrax. I've been to a bunch of them. They are a lot of fun. We had a little bit of a choppy connection every once in a while, but I think that was on our part with the internet being a little choppy. We fixed it as best we can, so we apologize for that in advance. Make sure you check us out live every Sunday night, 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time to 8 o'clock Standard Time. Make sure you check out our website, www.nextlevelradioonline.com. Follow us on Twitter at NXT Level Radio. And until the next guest spotlight, enjoy this interview with Kevin Murphy. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another guest spotlight right here on Next Level Radio. I am Ben Beck, joined by my co-host Adam Gorey, and to say we are excited to speak with our guest tonight would be a major understatement. So, going back to about 1995, 1996, I remember sitting on my couch, flipping through the channels one night, and I came across this really horrible movie called Alien from LA, starring Kathy Ireland. Except something was different about it this time. There was some added commentary, and that added commentary was coming from three silhouettes at the bottom of the screen. And the commentary that was coming from these three silhouettes were hysterical. Thus, my love for Mystery Science Theater 3000, the television show, was born. And now, even though the show is no longer on the air, the humor is still going strong with RiffTrax, which was created by some of the creators of Mystery Science Theater 3000. And tonight, we are joined by one of the creators and one of the current members of RiffTrax. Again, allow me to hold back my excitement just a little bit. We welcome to the show Mr. Kevin Murphy. Kevin, how are you this evening?
Ben, Adam, I am swell, and thank you for having me on your show.
It is an absolute pleasure. As I said, you probably are able to guess, I'm a huge fan. I came across Mystery Science Theater purely by accident, but I became an instant fan, and I've been a fan ever since.
The first episode you saw was Alien from LA, and you still stuck with the show.
Yes,
wow.
was Alien from LA, and I stuck with it.
That was a bad one.
It was, but you know what? I think that's what makes it so great, is the fact that it was bad, but it just... Sometimes the bad, the better.
It's true.
So, I've been a fan for years, and it's one of those things that, as weird as it may seem, and it's so different, the show itself was so different that, at least in my case, it's one of those things you always remember your first.
Sure.
And, and Mystery and Alien from LA was my first, so I do remember that.
Well, yeah, I think I can safely say that there was nothing like it on television at the time. I remember one of the inspirations for the show in the first place with Joel was we all grew up with these things, these hosted movies, Creature Features or Elvira. In Chicago, we had this guy named Sven Gulli who'd come out, and they wouldn't take any of this stuff seriously. And they would host the show, and then Joel just sort of said, well, why don't we just bring that one step further and bring the movie host into the theater to watch the movie with you? And that's simply what it was born out of. And what it generated into was something that everybody does anyway, which is talking back to your TV set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know personally when I'm watching movies, sometimes, I try not to talk too much during movies, but sometimes there's little snippy comments you make. I nowhere near able to make as many as you guys do, and at least funny ones. Mine are probably terribly stupid.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I remember when I was younger, I'm only 27, so I remember when I was younger watching Mystery Science Theater with my dad. And that's always a memory I'll have. How does it feel, knowing that you're a part of people's memories and essentially, kind of part of their family in a way?
It's really cool. It's sort of humbling. It's freaky and wonderful because I grew up with, I call them pajama shows. You know, you'd come down the stairs on Saturday morning before your dad would make you go out and mow the lawn, and you'd sit in your pajamas and watch these dumb shows. Or you'd stay up late and watch and do the same thing. But they're pajama shows. They're just things that you'd goof off to, and you'd remember them, and they'd have this lasting impression on your childhood, probably more than just about any other programming. So that's what Mystery Science Theater is for a lot of people, and that's really kind of cool. And Adam, to hear you say that you started watching with your dad or with your parents is so great. I keep on meeting people when we go to events and conventions and we do these live shows who are saying, yeah, I started watching it with my father. And now the freaky thing is I'm starting to hear, yeah, I started watching it with my grandpa.
Yeah, I mean, I even I actually spoke to my dad earlier today, and he said that at least where he's at, he still gets a few episodes of Mystery Science Theater on TV once in a while and still watches it when it's on. Our cable doesn't get it, unfortunately. I really wish it did, but
yeah, it's still on Netflix.
Oh yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that. Okay, well, now getting into the current iteration with RiffTrax that was created back in 2006 and obviously has been going strong with the help of yourself along with Mike Nelson and Bill Corbett. The only difference now is that you're mainly riffing more modern films, such as Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Marvel catalog, Twilight, Day After Tomorrow, as well as many others. And for me personally, with Mystery Science Theater, and you guys kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, I probably would not have watched many of those movies if you guys weren't commenting on them. Some of them were just so bad. And with the newer stuff, that I've already seen and loved, a lot of the movies that you guys have been riffing, is it any harder for you personally riffing a movie that you enjoy or maybe a blockbuster film like The Avengers compared to some of the really bad movies that are out there?
Well, here, I'll make a distinction. The blockbusters, it depends on the blockbuster, because a Michael Bay film, it's like pulling hairs out of your nose with the tweezers. That's how much those things hurt, because the guy, he can't edit. I'm sorry. He can't. He can barely shoot. He can't edit. It looks like all the pieces were thrown into the air, and then he sort of gathered them up and printed them. And so those are really hard, because with the old films we did, and by the way, RiffTrax, if you look at our site, we actually have a lot of the MST style cheesy old films now because people love them so much. We have those and we have shorts. But then we have these MP3s that you download with a movie, and that's how we get away with that. But the newer the film, the more they try to jam into the scene. There used to be like 4 or 5 edits in a typically cheesy 80s science fiction film. There'll be like 75 edits in a current science fiction film or action film. The films have gotten more frenetic, more frantic, and I think it has to do with the extremely limited attention span that people have these days, where they used to not have that. People would sit down and read Moby Dick. Now they read tweets. So there's a big difference there.
Yeah.
So that's been a challenge. But then we get these beautiful gems like Twilight, which is like, it's like sweet heroin for us. It really is.
Yeah.
There's nothing. It's like the perfect sort of film for us.
Yeah, it's hard not to riff it.
Right. And the films we got lined up right now for our live shows, Sharknado, then Godzilla in August, and then hopefully Anaconda in October.
Yeah.
Godzilla's going to be the most challenging of all because it has that sort of frenetic editing to it. But we did a great job of Starship Troopers, so I think we'll have fun with that.
Yeah, I can't wait for Sharknado.
Thanks. It's really helpful because I don't like any of these films, except for Anaconda. I have this fondness for it because it's a classic old bad film.
Right.
So in that way, I do have a fondness for it, but it's still fun to take its pants down and laugh at it.
Yeah.
But Sharknado is just it's wonderful. It's funny because I read all the stuff in the press about this being an intentionally bad film or an ironically bad film. And I don't know if that's true. I mean, the bottom line is, if you set out to make a bad film and you succeed, you still simply made a bad film.
Yeah.
So.
And it's sci-fi. It's from sci-fi too, and a lot of their stuff has that kind of.
Yeah, and I read some. It was a director who talked about his evolution into making these films. and he sounds clueless. And when you watch the film, that makes perfect sense. I mean, you know, he has that. It's actually, I think it's an old Ed Wood editing style where if you have to show some action, what you do is you cut away from the action like 5 or 6 times, and then you pretend that the action just happened.
Yeah.
And that's what Sharknado's all about. You never really see much going on, except for those few glory shots where they had the money to actually, you know, show the sharks eating people. And the rest of it is just like Confusavision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sharknado is one of those movies that it's on my list to. It was on my list to watch just because I had heard how bad it was and I wanted to see it. I wanted to see for myself. But once I heard that you guys were doing the riffing of it in July, I purposely waited. I did not want to see it.
Oh, bless your heart.
Because I wanted.
Yeah, that's what we do. We provide a service for people. We keep Hollywood safe for this crowd.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I mean, you guys started talking about the live, the RiffTrax Live. You guys started them back in 2009, and I'm proud to say I have seen all of them.
Wow!
You know, you started with Plan 9 from Outer Space in August of 2009.
Right.
You've done House on Haunted Hill, Reefer Madness, Manos, The Hands of Fate was fantastic.
Thank you.
Night of the Living.
I hate that film. I really, really, really hate that film. Wow.
But what you guys do to it makes people love it, and I think that's the best part.
It is. It's like we use humor for the avoidance of pain.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And Sharknado is a painful film, so it is our job to make the film much less painful.
I was gonna say some of the movies are hard to watch. Without you guys there, at least they would be hard to watch.
Does the way you prepare for a riff differ? Like if you were doing it for the studio for the MP3 compared to when you do it for live?
Yeah, it does. When people are in small groups or by themselves in front of the TV, the jokes can be a lot more rapid fire because you can hook into it and you can follow it a lot easier. But when you get to a live audience, we spread it out a little bit more because we want people to have the opportunity to laugh at something and not. I've heard it before when we first started doing this. We had too many jokes sometimes, and you'd hear people, they'd start to laugh, and then they'd stop themselves so they could hear what we were going to say next.
Okay.
And the films don't always cooperate with us. You know, I'd say that the perfect film for us acts like Margaret Dumont does to the Marx Brothers. You know, sets up the joke, and then we deliver the punchline, and then there's a laugh, and then there's the next one. But the films don't behave that way for us often, except for Twilight, which was perfect.
Well, I mean, I know in the case of Night of the Living Dead, trying to do too many jokes at one time so people have to stop laughing. Sometimes that doesn't always occur that way. I know just from a personal experience, and a friend of mine who was with me can definitely attest to this. During Night of the Living Dead, it was one of the stupidest punchlines that you guys had done, and no offense intended. You know, it was just one of the most stupidest things. It was you had Barbara walking towards the wall, and you're just like la, la bonk. That line, I think, floored me for 5 minutes straight. Like I had tears in my eyes. I don't know what it was about that particular line.
I think I can tell you. I have a theory about this. It's exactly what you were thinking at the time we did it.
Most likely,
so it's what you call, in the back of your head somewhere, you had this going on. It's like this Jungian thing. We call them psychic lawn darts. We suddenly hit you with something that you were probably thinking of, and then it's immediately recognizable, and you say, that is exactly the right thing to say at the right time.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it brings the house down, and that was one of those.
Yeah, that was just... It had me floored for at least a good 3 minutes. It's
sticking to Night of the Living Dead. Actually, funny enough, I had never seen that before watching the RiffTrax.
Wow.
But I think what makes some of them are so funny is that you guys are so observant. You know, there was the one scene in the house where he had just said he boarded up all the windows or all the doors and windows, except the window right behind him is completely unboarded, and you
exactly
had mentioned that, and it's like I didn't even notice that until you say something, and once you see it, it's so funny.
It is. It's a product of us watching the film over and over and over and sitting with the film. Like I'm sitting with a chunk of this week. I'm sitting with a 15-minute chunk of Sharknado for 6 days.
Oh man!
Watching it over and over and over again. And so I see everything that's going on in the screen and in the editing, and our temptation is to get too minute. But something like that was that's a gimme, and that was perfect because it worked out perfectly.
Now I know we had mentioned, or you had mentioned Starship Troopers earlier on, which actually came about by means of a Kickstarter project.
Right. Yes, it did. It was amazing. And
it was originally supposed to be the Twilight film, but you guys were unable to secure the rights to that. This is the crazy thing. Thanks to the good will of our fans, we asked for $55,000. We raised $240 something. Wow.
We brought that to the studio that owns Twilight, and they said no. They didn't want $250,000 of our fans' money to license this thing.
Yeah.
So, what can I say? Starship Troopers was perfect. It fulfilled the need we had. Someday, I'm hoping, because I think it would be the ultimate experience, I'm going to put on a tuxedo for it. Someday, I'm hoping that we'll be able to riff Twilight in the theater live nationwide like we've been doing.
Well, I mean, I kind of think that Starship Troopers actually turned out a little bit better in the long run, mainly because of the participation of people like Casper Van Dien and Neil Patrick Harris and Dina.
Wasn't that great?
They were tweeting about it, and I think Neil even went to go see it out in L.A. I mean, you would have never got that from Kristen Stewart or Robert Pattinson or anybody else that was in Twilight.
No, they'd be home brooding and sitting in the dark.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
What they do, right?
So I think Starship Troopers actually turned out a little bit better for you guys in the long run because they got so much more promotion out of it just from the cast of the movie.
It's true. Yeah, we had all kinds of the folks from the movie doing that, including Jake Busey, and I was so happy to hear it. The funny thing is, he was tweeting like mad before the movie, before the live show began, and then I noticed he was really quiet afterwards, so I got a little scared.
He might have just been sitting watching the movie.
He's laughing too hard to type in.
So,
and the other good sport, I'll just say, Dina Meyer, who was she played Dizzy. That's the love gets ill giant. But she did the whole thing, and she was a really good sport. Because we were relentless with some of these folks, particularly her and Jake, due to his teeth. We made a lot of fun of his teeth.
Yeah.
And, and the other guy who turned out to be a good sport is Clancy Brown, who was, he's a great character actor. You've seen him in a lot of things. He was in Highlander, and then you see that face in Starship Troopers and say, oh, yeah, he's in this, and he's in that, and he's in the other thing. And he was a great sport about it. He seems to be just a terrific guy.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I know I was actually on vacation during that when that one came about, and my friend who I was on vacation with, we actually ended up driving about 35 minutes away from where we were just to find a theater to go see it.
You get a medal, my friend.
Well, I mean, I love going to them. They're just so much fun, and
thank you.
And they're a full-on experience. I mean, it's not just when you go in, you don't just go in and you see the movie. You guys, you have music by the Rifftones playing before the movie. The screens that you have up, on like the pre-movie screens that you have up with the absolutely absurd movie trivia and quotes, are hysterical. Yeah. They get the audience laughing before the show even starts.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a perfect warm-up. That's our writers, Connor Lostelka and Sean Thomason. They're the younger ones of us, the people who get what the hell's going on in the world right now. And they write those pre-show slides, and people have started showing up early so that they can see the pre-show.
Oh, I'm one of them.
And that's great, because it's the ultimate warm-up act. It's the best warm-up act we could possibly have, because it hails back to when I was a kid and going to the movies, where you'd have these trivia slides that would just roll by with some innocuous music. And so it's sort of the same thing, except we have spun it around and turned it on its head and made it goofy.
Yeah, I will actually take pictures of them with my phone just so I can go back and read them later.
I love you. I love you.
But I know we mentioned in July, you guys have Sharknado coming out on July 15th, and then you're going to do a second July 10th, and then you're going to do a second showing on the 15th.
That's right. Yep.
Usually you're at
the live one is the 10th.
Yeah. Usually you're at the Belcourt Theater, but this time you're actually in Minneapolis.
Well, it's funny. Mike Nelson, after many years in San Diego, where the RiffTrax tech HQ still is, moved back to Minnesota. He's originally from the Midwest, and his wife Bridget is also she's actually from Minnesota, and he moved back. I think he's got sort of fed up with the Southern California weirdness and moved back here. And of course, he moved back during the worst winter in Minnesota's history. And he said it was like three-quarters. It was in April, and it was still like 15 degrees, and we had freezing rain and sleet and snow. And he said, "What the hell did I do?" But he's here, and that's why we're doing it here. Is because the three of us are back here in town, and this is where we started. And we actually, back in the Mystery Science Theater days, we did two live shows. One was that we did, and we did it at the State Theater where we're going to be doing it this time. And it's a beautiful theater. It's actually a terrific place to see a movie. So it is sort of like a homecoming for us, we think, after all this time, because, boy, that was almost 20 years ago that we did that live show at the State Theater. So
Wow.
It's really going to be fun to be in front of a hometown crowd and do this. It's going to be great.
Well, one of these days, I will get to where you guys are doing it live, no matter where it is, and I will see one live in person.
You are welcome. You are welcome.
Philadelphia would be great.
I'd love it. No, so you guys are in Pennsylvania or in Philly?
Yeah, Philadelphia area.
Cool.
So, now I know I know we're getting ready to wrap things up, but before we do that, we can't go without mentioning the Kickstarter project that you have going on right now.
Thank you.
You've already raised the money to do Godzilla in August.
Yes.
The 1998 version of Godzilla with Matthew Broderick, which I cannot wait. But you've since extended that into a stretch auction, as you're calling it, that if you can get to $250,000, you're going to be able to do Anaconda in October.
That's right. Yes, we are. Yeah, and I Anaconda is it's so near and dear to my heart. I can't tell you, and I think it's just. I think about it. I mean, it's got John Voight, J-Lo, Ice Cube, Owen Wilson.
I forgot Owen Wilson was in that.
Eric Stoltz, who was there with John Travolta plunging the needle into his girlfriend's, into Uma Thurman's chest
in
Pulp Fiction. And Danny Trejo. You can't beat it. It's an all-star cast.
That is an all-star cast. I was gonna say.
And I think last I checked, you guys were up to about 175,000.
Yeah, just about 175,000 right now. So we're crossing our fingers, and we're hoping. We really want to make this work, and so we'll be bugging people as much as possible. Anybody who hasn't done it, but I'm thinking that we have a great lineup between now and that show is going to be on October 30th, and this will help us have just a really kick-ass year of these live shows, and it's pretty amazing and humbling that this has happened so far, because we're now getting movies that we only dreamed when we first started doing the live shows back in when we did Plan 9, like 6 years ago now.
Yeah.
Just about. We never dreamed that we'd be able to get films like this, and it's through Kickstarter, which is such an amazing thing. It's truly just through Kickstarter we've been able to do this, and the goodwill of our fans.
Yeah, I mean, considering how fast you guys were able to raise the $100,000 for Godzilla, I think I got a good feeling you guys will be able to do Anaconda in October.
Well, thank you. I'm going to keep whoring myself out in order to make this happen.
Well, you already did get some of my money, so I've already.
Oh, God bless.
So.
And the Godzilla timing is perfect, because with the new movie that just came out, it reminded everybody how pretty terrible the '98 version was.
There is a more recent Peninsula who the film distressed the Matthew Broderick era Godzilla in the film.
Yeah, I think
it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Well, I know we're getting ready we're getting to the end of our time, but just before we end our interviews, what we like to do is we do what we call our rapid fire questions.
Okay.
They're just a couple questions that we're just going to throw your way. They're pretty easy questions. You don't have to. A lot of people tend to get nervous about them for some reason.
Nope.
So
I'm totally stream of consciousness. It might get loud and dirty. I'm just going to warn you.
Hey, we're fine with that.
That's okay. First one is, what's been your favorite movie to riff, either RiffTrax or Mystery Science Theater?
Oh, wow. Twilight.
Nice.
What movie haven't you riffed yet that would be your dream movie to riff?
Oh, wow. It's that we've gotten to do so many. I want to do, on a live show, Ben Affleck as Daredevil.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
That would be great.
Yeah.
And last one, you've obviously worked with a number of celebrities. What celebrity would you like to riff a movie with?
Oh, any one of them who's been with us so far, but Paul F. Tompkins is probably my number one.
Paul F. Tompkins is fantastic. I know he joined you guys with, was it Manos, the live show? Or was it?
He snuck on during House on Haunted Hill, I think it was.
Yeah, I know it was one of them. I couldn't remember. They all tend to blend together now. So I mean,
we've done these. Occasionally done these shows during the San Francisco Sketch Fest at the Castro Theater, and we've done it with Paul F., with John Hodgman, with Kristen Schaal, who was just fantastic.
Yeah.
She was great. Andy Richter, David Cross, Bob Odenkirk. We've just been able to avail ourselves to these incredible comic heroes of ours. And that's been really fun. So, and Weird Al, which is really incredible.
And I think you guys have even done a studio MP3 one with NPH before. I think Neil Patrick Harris has done one with you.
Did Willie and Weird Al did Jurassic Park with Mike. That's a pretty wonderful thing.
Yeah. So
going back to Paul F. Tompkins, he's local to Philly, the Philly guy.
Yes, he is.
So always love to hear that.
The bastard has moved out to L.A., but, what can you do?
What a sellout.
Yeah.
No,
I know. No, I love him dearly.
So, well, we definitely want to send people to the Kickstarter page. They can find all the information on your Kickstarter page on your page, which is www.rifftrax.com, Trax, T-R-A-X. They can follow you on Twitter at RiffTrax, or they can follow you personally, KW Murphy on Twitter.
Yep.
Sharknado is going to be July 10th with a second show, the live show July 10th with a second showing July 15th, and Godzilla is going to be one night only, August 15th.
That's right.
So, I already have and you said Anaconda, if you reach the goal, which I believe you will be October 30th.
That's correct.
Okay. I know I already have my tickets to Sharknado. I'm just waiting for tickets to go on sale for Godzilla, so.
Thank you, sir.
I'm a fan. I've been a fan, and I will probably almost always be a fan. So,
well, I appreciate it. We will try our best to keep your fandom.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This was definitely. I don't use the word lightly, but this was kind of an honor for me.
Oh, cool. Well, it was my pleasure, and thanks for having me on.
To everybody listening, we thank you for joining us this evening. Be sure to check us out, www.nextlevelradioonline.com. Follow us on Twitter at NXTLevelRadio. You can hear a recap of the interview on our live show every Sunday night, 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And until then, we will see you around the bend. Take care.